With this painting, everything was supposed to be different, but a series of unexpected circumstances and happy accidents made it what it is now. It all started to go against the plan with a sketch. My idea was a horse looking back at something sitting at its back. I'm not gonna give away what it was, as I still want to paint this. But I was kind of lazy and didn't make any sketch on a scrap paper, but just went with my pencil straight to the watercolor paper. Needless to say, I just made the horse too big. I didn't manage to fit neither its back nor the thing that was supposed to sit there. I probably could erase it and start over, but I didn't want to risk damaging the paper, and I just left it as it was. That second idea will have to be painted some next time. After I made this sketch, I basically didn't have time to sit and paint for quite a long time. I don't remember exactly, but it could have been even a month. But the progress on the painting was still happening, just not on the paper, but in my brain. When I was doing random other things, my brain was processing how to paint this. Originally, the horse was supposed to be bay, which means brown in the horse word, with light blue background. But apparently something didn't feel right to me, and my thoughts kept coming back to an idea of a blue-eyed Pinto Horse that I'd been wanting to paint for a long time, and also to one paint that I had in my watercolor box. And this was the paint, Indian Red Watercolor by Roman Szmal. This is a very powerful color that I find a little bit more challenging to use. It is strongly pigmented and not translucent, which means it can overpower the painting easily. But it looks so much like a red Pinto Horse color that I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided to go for this idea, but luckily I thought to try it out first. I drew some spots patterns to find the best one. I wanted to have some bigger spots, some dots, and two colors on the main. Then I drew a very fast sketch in a watercolor sketchbook and tried to paint a small version. I used only Indian red for the spots and maybe some ultramarine for the shadows, but it looked quite flat. This color was too homogeneous and highlights were just a washed out color. So on the other side of the paper, I tried adding some colors for the highlights. I made a gradient of quinacridone gold transitioning to Aquarius orange, then to Indian red as a base color and Indian red mixed with ultramarine for the shadows. I felt that the shadows in my sketch were not the best and that the background made with phthalo blue was too intense. So I made one more pencil sketch where I clearly marked where shadows were supposed to go. And I tried the background made of green and purple and decided that it looks nicer combined with the browns. This painting took me quite a long time. Based on the video footage, I painted it for 5 hours. The first layers were made wet on wet and the rest wet on dry. The first step of wet layers is usually pretty easy for me, but while adding more details, I'm always quite stressed that I will ruin the painting beyond salvation with my next move. The better it starts to look, the greater the fear becomes. So I was adding layer by layer using the same mixes as on my sketch: Aquarius orange, Indian red, and ultramarine. For the white parts, I mixed grey using a classic mix of ultramarine, yellow, and some red. I'm not sure why, but I struggled a lot with achieving the contrast that I wanted. I had to make quite a lot of layers before I managed to achieve the right darkness. Also, the paper unglued itself in the part where I used a lot of water. I'm not sure if this is a common thing or just happens with this particular paper. Luckily, it's only the currently used page, the rest of the block is still intact. paint the mane, I firstly added some darker shadows to the base layer. The whole thing was still pretty light, especially the brown part. I tried to follow the direction of the hair with each line. I had to especially be careful not to make the white part too dark. On the shoulder, I tried to add some more fur texture here and there. I used short lines in the color that was slightly darker than the base. After it was dry, I added darker shadows to the brown part. Again, I tried to follow the hair direction quite closely, but not focusing on individual hair, but rather bigger shapes. The fringe part was quite smooth and easier for me to paint, and the back part was much more chaotic with hair pointed in a few different directions, so it was a challenge to paint. After adding the shadows, I washed away some of the color with my usual brush. It is a brush with short and stiff bristles. I make it slightly moist and erase the color. After each line, it must be washed as it grabs a lot of pigment. Depending on how staining each color is, it will do better or worse job. Some colors will erase completely, some barely. I'm not fully satisfied with the brown part of the mane, but I really like the white part with some yellowish reflections. It was time to add the background. I love using granulating colors for the backgrounds, so the initial plan was using mostly autumn green and some purple for the shadows at the bottom of the painting. I also wanted to use salt to enhance the textures. But I got a little bit carried away. It started alright, but I've recently rearranged the paints in my box and the colors in the pans are quite dark and not always easy to differentiate, so I accidentally used mineral pink instead of mineral violet. The name seems similar and the colors are actually also quite similar, as they are both a mix of ultramarine with either quinacridone magenta or quinacridone violet. But mineral pink is so much brighter and more intense than what I imagined for this painting. I kind of went with the flow and started adding more and more of the mineral pink, definitely more than the original sketch intended. I also managed to locate the mineral violet and added it as well at the darkest parts at the bottom. After I finished, I was quite devastated and thought that I ruined it, as while still wet, it didn't look great. But I left it to dry and it was actually a late evening already, so I didn't look at it until the next morning. And after drying, it didn't look that bad anymore. However, it was still a little bit intense, especially that the horse itself was also full of intense colors. I knew I had to separate it from the background somehow. So I took a tiny brush and added some shadows at the bottom of the horse. Then, with the damp brush that I previously used to erase some parts of the mane, I washed the edges of the mouth and top of the nose that were supposed to be bright and more defined. Since not all colors can be erased that easily, I decided to add some light colored pencils in the places that washing the color away was not possible. Some parts were still not finished though, mainly the eye. I darkened the area around it and also added more contrast to the shadows on the head, as I felt that they still weren't as dark as I wanted. I finished the pupil, but I felt that the eye lost its brightness, so I enhanced the iris with light blue colored pencil, added a blink and also some tiny details to the eyelashes. Last but not least, I painted a soft shadow under the fringe. And this is the finished horse. I've previously received some comment that the salt on the purple colors looks like flowers, so I titled this piece a flower pinto. In my mind, those are lilac bushes. The painting is of course available in my Etsy shop together with my other art. And that is all in the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think and see you in the next one. Bye bye!